Hello, Dr. Lee.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, Pastor, how are you doing?
Fine, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good.
Let's see you. You are cutting your head. Move your camera a
Yeah,
little.
I'm coming. I'm trying to get myself situated. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. How's my sound quality?
Good. I see you have improved completely. You have improved your sound.
I've done one.
You improved. I don't know whether Joshua is joining us.
Yes, he said he will. He
Okay.
texted me. He had texted me earlier. I sent him a voice message this morning.
Yeah.
And he did confirm he will be joining us.
Oh, that's good.
What was the material you sent? I haven't been able to look through it.
It's just the health services thing about how to communicate about vaccine and biomedical innovations for adoption. He's just basically using behavioral sciences to be able to get the message across to the people that this is safe and it's useful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will download it and print it.
Yes. Normally I don't. I'm so used to it. I'm so used to you reading online. I don't print.
I don't read well with online reading. My eyes. So I have to print and do paper reading.
Listen, I will add a rider that please consider the environment before printing.
Environment should consider our eyes also.
Please consider the environment before you decide to print this material.
Wow. I just sent him a text that we're waiting on him.
Okay, no problem.
I hope he's I'd like to speak with you when we're done.
Okay, no problem. We're streaming live, so hold on. It's streaming.
You're already live?
I have to set it up earlier because if I don't set it up earlier, it takes a lot of time to set it up to make sure that it's live and streaming.
Okay.
But I think this is the practice session. It's practice session, but it's public, so it doesn't matter. We'll talk after we finish.
Oh, that's okay.
Give me a minute, right?
Okay. Okay. No problems. Okay. No problem. Thanks.
Okay, we're here. We should be starting like, because it's 2:35.
Yeah, I just spoke with him. He said he's joining in.
No problem.
We can start if you want to.
No, well, let's wait.
No, we can wait for him a minute.
There is Dr. Joshua.
Hi.
Hey, how are you, man?
My people.
Yeah, we are. Is this?
Oh boy. How are you?
I'm very fine. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. David, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man. So let's start, because we're sort of running late. After we finish, we can talk later. We can discuss, but
Okay.
we like to we start. I do a brief introduction. Then everybody does the introduction a little bit. Our topic would be messaging for so that we can get adoption of biomedical research innovations, particularly COVID-19 medication and public and mental health. You know, those are things that are really connected, in the sense that if we don't message it right, we get it wrong, and we have to bring our people along.
That's true.
Yeah. So we're there. We're live now. Welcome to this week's edition of public discussion on how to get our scientific message across to the population, particularly the minority populations who are impacted by disease but are hesitant about on adopting new innovations because of historical reasons. So today we are going to discuss particularly the messaging that is required, such that we can be able to get the message across that COVID-19 vaccination is safe, can do the job, and that it was not made or researched for harmful reasons. And with us today is Dr. Joshua and Pastor Morgan Ikonne. They are experts in their field. I will not do justice by introducing them, so I will let Pastor Ikonne go first. 1 minute, introduce yourself, and then we go to Dr. Joshua, introduce yourself, and then we go ahead and have a discussion on how we can get particularly African immigrants and Black people to trust biomedical research innovations.
Thank you, Dr. Amakobe. My name is Morgan Ikonne. I'm the director of New Life Foundation Recovery. which is a mental health substance abuse treatment facility located in Newcastle, Delaware, United States of America. By way of certification, I am a certified advanced drug and alcohol counselor, as well as a licensed master social worker with a Master of Science in Psychology and a Master of Science in Divinity as well. A Bachelor of Arts in Theology and Philosophy. So it's a pleasure for me to be here today and to be part of this panel. I hope that we'll be able to share constructively and meaningfully that which will be profitable to our population, African Americans, and especially those of us who are in diaspora here in the United States of America.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua. Let's hear about you.
Thank you. So my name is Chijioke Joshua. So I am a microbial physiologist by training. I currently am a microbial physiologist with a Perfect Day. It's a non-dairy company in the Bay Area, California. So I have a PhD in microbiology, focusing on physiology and metabolism from University of California, Berkeley. I have a master's in biological sciences and microbiology from Tuskegee University in Alabama. And then I have a bachelor's in microbiology from University of Uyo in Nigeria. And myself and Ikonne, we were high school classmates.
Good, thanks. You see, high school classmates, now you have the responsibility to use your qualification experience to explain to people who are hesitant because they don't trust the science. But you guys can interpret, can read and question the science and the innovations in biomedical research, interrogate it, and tell us whether it's okay for us to go for the innovations that come out of it. Specifically, I've seen polls that show that 40% of Black people in the United States think or say they will not be taking the vaccination because they don't trust it, either because they think it's not safe or they've taken too short a time to develop it, or they just don't trust the system and the structures that developed it. But we know that that particular population has also been very highly impacted by COVID-19 because of historical reasons as well. So it's a population that needs this vaccination. And coming to mental health as well, the developments and the research in mental health is available, but not trusted as well. So with your training, Dr. Joshua, how do you explain to somebody who trusts you, but don't trust the vaccine?
I think the first thing you have to consider is the fact that as of today, over 300 people are dead from this disease in the United States alone.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's just referring to those cases that are known. So there's a possibility that the number might be higher than what is currently being reported. Yeah. So the fact that you have real people dying, number one, is call for concern. And if we don't do anything to stop that from happening, then I don't think we're helping anybody. So for me, that's the first thing I'm going to point out to anybody before I even start thinking about what is the science. This is a real problem, and we've suffered even economic hardship for the past year from lockdown that associated with this virus infection. So those are all tangible things that we can see. You know, some people have been in denial of this, that this is real. And I could see in the early days of April, March, April, May, people saying, oh, but this may not be real. But right now, every person here in the United States at least has come close to people who have been impacted by this virus. So it should be taken seriously.
Okay. Pastor Ikonne, you see the same question in the sense that this is a real problem. We have accepted that this is a real problem. Both COVID-19 and mental health are really problems. Okay. The challenge here is the solutions that are available are being provided by organizations, structures, and processes that are not trusted by the people who should receive them. As a pastor and as a mental health expert, just how do you do the messaging so that you can interpret the scientific and the information available so that you can be able to carry the people, the 40% who are in doubt?
Thank you, Dr. Amakobe. That's a very interesting question. And I'm going to take a leap from where my friend Dr. Joshua just spoke from. Foremost is the necessity to demystify this belief that COVID-19 is unreal, that it is a hoax. It's not. I mean, as I speak to you right now, I know a number of people in our congregation who are currently in quarantine because of being exposed to COVID-19. From pastoral point of view, I know the toil and the difficulty associated with having to restructure your day-to-day ministry engagements to accommodate the fact that this is real. So we got to demystify that, because until people accept the reality of it, the messaging is not going to do any good. I will only be open to something I believe truly exists. So that's where we begin. So I agree with Dr. Joshua 100% about that. But going further is to the point you raised. These institutions, yes, historically has proven to be untrustworthy. But at this moment, we also need to be a people who are not just stuck in the past, who believe that everything science brings forth has a heinous secret agenda behind it. The reason being that historically, yes, a lot of our people were not part of this system and the processes in terms of governmental policy formulations, in terms of being part of the scientific discovery or scientific processes of the discovery of the vaccine. We know today that even here in the United States, the greater percentage of medical doctors, scientists, and all that experts within that field are people of color. So we have a stakeholdership. And another thing that we intentionally do things that are harmful to our people. So I need to underscore, secondly, that we are part of that institution now. We may have had distrust with that institution before because we were not on the table, but considerably and significantly, we are on the table now. Therefore, we need to be open-minded to trust what is coming out of these institutions. And thirdly, is to underscore the fact that it is okay for you to be hesitant, but don't stop there. Ask the questions. Let your fears be expressed and be willing to engage in a dialogue where you don't just ask questions to prove a point, but you're asking questions to understand. So if our people can approach, and I will present it, hey, we have been a people who are fundamentally defined by communal think, meaning that we approach things from a communal point of view. And in our communal think process, we always have been people who engage in a dialogue for resolution. So why don't you bring your point so that we can have an understanding of your fears, your questions, your worries, and do so with an open mind to receive and go back and research what you've received to know if it is true or not.
Okay, and currently the messaging on COVID-19 vaccine has been about the compressed timeline of research. And you know, when people hear compressed time, they are thinking political expediency. Okay, what do you think about changing the narrative such that it is the development of science? Because right now, Dr. Joshua is sitting in California, you are sitting in Newcastle, and we are talking. 20 years ago, that would not be possible. But if we did this and said it is because the politicians have made a decision, everybody will completely refuse it. But because we know it's technology, we can take it. So speak to the fact that the messaging should be about the scientific change and not the compressed time.
Is that to me or
that question is for me?
Yeah, that's to Joshua, yes.
Yeah, so okay, so yeah, there are so many development. You're right. This is 2020 and technology has advanced. In the past, vaccines are generally made by growing the virus on eggs. So which means you would have lots of eggs somewhere where you grow a lot of virus to generate a lot of viruses. Mm-hmm. After which you would either kill or inactivate those viruses, but you need to generate them in a large amount. Yes. You could imagine just growing just a little bit on an egg and then recovering that and then pulling them all together and then generating the virus, and then treating them subsequently. But in this scenario, because of the previous epidemics and pandemics that we've had recently, like the H1N1, so that started leading to various forms of development. And this current vaccine, there are different, from what I have learned, there are different types of vaccines that are in the pipeline. But the ones that have come out are the RNA viruses. So the fact that the RNA viruses simply means you can actually produce it. So what they do is, everybody has seen the picture of coronavirus, and then you could see those red spikes. Usually those things are foreign. Whenever they go into your body recognizes them as foreign and then produce antibody against them. So what these vaccines are doing, because we know the genetic code of these viruses, what we did was you produce the RNA, the messenger RNA, which is what every cell in the body, which is what the virus makes your body to do, to produce that for itself. So now we're only introducing that only RNA for that aspect of the protein code. So once it is injected into your body, what your body uses the RNA, which is similar to any other RNA in your normal body. Your body uses that to produce tons of proteins. And then once the body produces that tons of proteins, so technically your body is now beginning to see the protein that you would have seen if the actual virus had come into your body, and then your body will produce protein. But RNA is not stable. As soon as it goes there, it degrades really, really fast, which is why these vaccines need to be kept at high, very cold temperature. Because if you don't keep them at cold temperature, the RNA is just going to degrade, and then there'll be nothing there. So it's actually really, really safe. But there's been a lot of testing, various stages of testing that is being, that the companies have gone through with multiple people, which FDA have gone through with independent panel to review and approve that the efficacy that the companies are reporting is actually very, very true. So this is more, I know it sounds very technical, but so that is why this vaccine has gone very, very very, very fast, because you can produce RNA very, very rapidly compared to growing the virus on chicken.
So basically, it is not the politicians who made sure that this vaccine is being produced very fast. It is the scientists. It is the scientists who should get credit. And it's also the fact that they are basing on basic research that has been going on for a long time. It didn't start yesterday. The problem we have with the messaging currently, when people look at it, when somebody goes to Twitter, it seems like when the vaccine, the virus came in March, and the politicians said, on your mark, start. And then later they start saying, this thing takes 12 years, now we've done it in 2 months. That creates a problem in the minds of the unscientific mind, thinking they took shortcuts. This cannot be a good thing. Pastor Morgan, now you normally deliver on faith. We need you to deliver this message on the people that we had the basic research from a long time. Is a big body of knowledge that we had, and we build on it. It's not because we cut corners for the 12 years that normally take a vaccine to be developed, but because we had the body, we just had to develop the vaccine.
I think Dr. Amakobe, Dr. Joshua kind of did the very simplistic explanation of these, and my challenge is this: when it comes to the faith community, especially the Christian faith community, of which and to which I am a part of, it is not just the politicization that has gone on by various newslets and news media organizations, but also it is the unproven and unjustifiable propounding that most faith organization leaderships are getting out there. I was watching some guy in Tennessee telling his parishioners that they should never take it because it is this, it is that, it's the other. So I will begin by saying that faith leaders, please, we need to desist from being anti-science, and we need to desist from stating things that we don't have proof for. We also need to desist from being so politically inclined that whatever our political persuasions are and whatever our political aspirations may be becomes what informs our approach to public health measures. Science in itself is of God. Ingenuity is of God, and we know that. So to talk to people of faith and within this community, the foremost thing I will establish to them is this: if you have faith that God is in you and that He protects you, you should be able to have faith also that those who were saddled with the responsibility over time of looking into and researching into vaccine manufacturing have done so within observable and practicable safe limits of science. So there is no cutting of corners here. Within FDA and CDC are people of faith. Everybody there is not, as supposedly many people are making people to believe, are agents of the Antichrist. No, there are scientists who are part of this process who are people of faith. So you need to give that allowance in your thought process. The second thing is that you need to also go back to history to find out that every time that the church or the faith community has stood against certain innovations, we end up being at the receiving end of it in a negative way. Take, for example, when the measles vaccine came out, when HIV stuff came out, when all of these vaccines came out, many people of faith stood against it. But a lot of lives were lost. But when people started buying into it, people's lives are saved. So we need to look back and ask ourselves, all these things that we tend to have believed in the past, did it prove to be what it is or not? So if it proved not to be what people were saying, then it was. Why should you buy into this lie right now? If for your faith persuasion, you don't want to take the virus, that's okay. That's within your legal right and your faith right to do so. But don't be espousing lies and on falsehood because you just want to make a political statement. So I think that that is important. And on a final note, my messaging will be this. For those of us who espouse to a certain element of the Christian faith, evangelicals, we believe in what we call that the Holy Spirit lives in us. And that Holy Spirit speaks to you, per what we believe. Allow him to speak to you. And also, as I stated last time, the Bible itself has a lot of public health measures that are inscribed in the scriptures. Look at it for yourself and understand that this is a public health crisis, and the Bible is not against the mitigation of public health crisis. And right now, the COVID-19 vaccine is the mitigation formula or tool that is out there, and your faith does not condemn that.
I hear you. Dr. Joshua, when you sit in the lab where you work, you are a doctor, you have a PhD in your field, right? Yeah. Do you think that from a personal point of view, you can develop something and put it out on the market when you know that it's going to affect a Black person adversely?
No, I mean, that is unthinkable, right? That's unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean,
that's unthinkable.
Because the vaccine that came out, I read that the embassy, the American embassy in Nigeria, congratulating Nigerian scientists for helping in developing that vaccine, right? So, and then we had 2 Turkish immigrants developing that vaccine too. Basically, they used their knowledge with the money available from their companies and the support of the institutions to develop a vaccine to solve a problem. Considering that 40% of African Americans say they are not going to take the vaccine, and considering that the fatality rate amongst Black or minority health caregivers is higher than the rest, how do we make sure that this group that is completely impacted by the COVID-19 and also impacted by their lack of faith, their hesitancy, we reduce that so that they can be helped?
You know, I think when people have, I think Ikonne will speak more to this, when people have fear, genuine fear, I'm not talking about politically driven fear, genuine fear, people have a reason, people have the right to have that fear. Yeah. And I'm sure part of what we're doing here is also to help them bring down that fear. But I think we should also address the reason why the people are having that fear. Because it's going, at the end of the day, it helps in the healing process and acceptance.
Yes.
And I mentioned earlier, I got my master's from Tuskegee University. Yeah. And we all know about the Tuskegee experiment, which is 40 years experiment of where people were told lies about their illness, in this case syphilis, and because they wanted to know the natural cause of syphilis in Black male. Yeah. And even when, and to be frank, the experiment was also conducted by CDC, right?
Okay.
And even when the penicillin came out, they withheld that from the people, from their knowledge. So people have the right to be afraid or to have fears about trusting the government, because people have experienced that. But we're all aware of it, and this is a new day. This is a new time, whereby we have information in our pocket called the cell phone. So, but while we have the right to remember their past, but we should not dwell there. We should take advantage of all the resources we have to us to try to inform ourselves about the situation, about the current situation. So the current situation is different from what was happening then. And that is why we're doing our very best to ensure that we tell people they have the right to have their fear, but in this case, they should consider that what is happening right now is actually designed to address this problem.
Okay, that's good. But the minority scientists, the people who have PhD and masters behind their name, have a responsibility too, not only to be at the table, but to make sure that these fears are expressed and taken care of. You understand? It's like when you have a doctorate degree or a master's degree and you're professional at the table, if you are just there as a number, that does a disservice to the people who are trusting you. You may not want to carry that burden, but it's a burden that you have to carry. Don't you think?
True.
Yeah,
that's true.
Mm-hmm. So in any innovation, there is a curve, an adoption curve. There are early adapters and there are laggards. That's for sure. There are people who would adopt it later. There are people who would adopt it currently. So you see, the problem with the vaccine, it's loaded. The curve is loaded with that fear and with the political expediency when politicians want to get credit for the work. You understand? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you understand? You see, how do we then make sure that these stakeholders also get a benefit? Because politicians want to get credit. We have to give it to them because that's how they get elected. But you see, that credit reduces trust. Yes. And reduces the ability of the uptake. So how do we balance that? Both of you, I'll let Morgan go, Pastor Morgan go, and then I'll come to you, Joshua. How do we balance the fact that politicians need to get credit for the development of vaccine or innovation, okay? But given that the trust level reduces if the politicians are the ones who are in the driving seat?
I think that's a very necessary question and concept to talk about or talk to or try to speak to with. Let's establish foremost that we live and breathe within a political structure, especially here in the United States of America. And we know that even our current president, when he established Operation WAP or WAP, I can't remember how it's
Warp Speed,
Warp Speed or whatever it's called. The intent was to get this vaccine out within, and we saw the political advertisements and everything. Hey, but before November 3rd, the election, you're going to have the vaccine rolled out. So there were a lot of politicization that was done that exacerbated the fear because politicians want to take credit. And that's okay because the funding and the policies that regulates the manufacturing of the vaccines were provided by them. We get that. However, I think it is a political disservice to your constituents. If I am a politician and I know that peddling political opinions and trading political advantages for myself would hinder and destroy the faith that my constituents have on this vaccine, I think it is immoral and unethical for me to continue to seek for such credit as against redirecting the credit to those who it is due. And in so doing, yes, I'd still get a credit, but it demystifies the fear. It removes the hesitancy that is associated with it if constantly I am projecting myself there as the one by whom and through whom this came about. If my intent truly is to help my constituents, then I have to step out and allow science lead the way. Now, I am not trying to be the podent of anybody for Joe Biden, but I see a mechanism that he has adopted here of putting a scientific community together, committee rather, together to spearhead it. So whatever people are hearing about COVID is not necessarily coming from him. It's coming from people who have the science and who have the expertise, people who have the experience to talk about it. Because when scientific questions are asked, politicians do not have the answer. And if they don't have the answer, it continues to exacerbate the fear and the hesitancy. So I will say that foremost, politicians need to recognize that yes, credit is due to them, but if the intent is to help their constituents, let them step out of the way. A second thing I will establish very quickly because of time is this, that those of us who are within the scientific field needs to become advocates within our communities. We should not wait to be called upon. Each one of us have communities of interaction. We need to take it upon ourselves to explain to our people the science behind this vaccine. It should be a civic responsibility for us to explain it. And secondly, for us to lend our voice to the demystification of the process involved and the fears that are associated with it. And I agree with Dr. Joshua completely that everybody has the right to be hesitant and afraid, but we don't just stop there. We will need those of us who know what this has been all about, who our people can listen to, and who they trust, not the politician. They trust you because they know you. They trust you because you've been with them. They trust you because you stayed consistent. Let it become our civic responsibility to speak up and to share what we know about this vaccine. I think it will help.
Dr. Joshua, this is going to be tough for you because you know what? Politicians fund, you understand, fund all these projects, right? Yeah. And they need credit. Mm-hmm. Even in the organization where you work, when you are doing a technical project, you will need to go to finance, and those finance people are just crunching numbers. Yeah. So how do we balance the need for them to take credit and our need to make sure that the message goes out to the public or to our communities that this is not driven by money, by politics, but driven by science?
Yes, I think both of you are correct. Politicians need to give credit to whom credit is due. Mm-hmm. But for the general public, my recommendation would be that you try to find a scientist that's providing information about this current situation that you trust. If I have to give one recommendation, that would be, I would just say, listen to whatever Dr. Fauci says. Mm-hmm. Because he's somebody that throughout this experience has walked this fine line of not interfering with the politicians trying to take their credit, but also not falling to trying to tell them what they want to hear. So Dr. Fauci will tell you what he knows as at that time. Sometimes I think he has been accused of saying something in the past, yes, that has changed. And yes, because this is a new disease, we don't know what it is. We are learning every day. And Dr. Fauci, whenever something changes, he will tell you based on what we know today, which is different from what we know yesterday. And that's exactly how science works. Science works in a structured way. You know, things can change. What you say today might be proven wrong tomorrow. Mm-hmm. As a scientist, you are ethically obligated to state that. Once something you believe today changes tomorrow, mm-hmm, you have to state that has changed. And that is why if I'm going to give a recommendation, that would be listen to whatever Dr. Fauci says, mm-hmm, and also listen from your local news. Listen to the doctors and nurses that are treating COVID patients in your local area, from your local news. Listen to those guys, whatever they tell you, follow them, because they tell you those are the people in the forefront in the forefront of this war, and they are telling you right from direct experience. So those two would be my recommendation. But you have to give politicians their credit, but listen to the scientists and the doctors.
That is true for us who live in the States, okay? Yes. But also we have dual responsibility to our old countries. Yes. And all of us must be in some groups with our old countrymen, and sometimes the things they say set your hair on fire. But how do we listen to their concerns? You know, the concerns of African Americans and Black and minority people in the US is different from the concerns of Africans on the continent. The Africans on the continent seem to have a view that they are going to be continuously be guinea pigs, and we, speaking from the US, have been compromised such that we are only saying the things that we're told to say. How do we address it? Because in as much as I like to defend and protect the people around me, my nuclear family, and the people around me in the United States, I am worried about my brother, my cousin, who somebody dies of COVID-19, they go to the funeral, and then the next person is dead again, they go to the funeral, everybody's congregating, and they don't seem to believe that COVID-19 is there. And after they realize they're dying, they don't believe that the vaccine will do anything. How do we address that? That is also happen to be our problem. To you, Pastor. Okay, let's start with Joshua. Joshua, you're speaking. Yes.
Yeah, you know, that's a big challenge, because we know from where we came from, yes, superstition is supreme.
Yes.
Most things that happen over there is not based, sometimes not based on reality, and it's based on culture. I can understand that. Mm-hmm. But, and also, it also boils down from governance, leadership. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you tell people, when you lock people down and you don't provide them with resources, people are going to stop, they're going to stop believing, even though if that's the real, they're going to tell you that they don't want to believe it. Yes. But I'm going to give an example. Something happened earlier. I think that was when I was still in Nigeria, early 2000, I think around 2000, when the governor of Ikonne State in Nigeria banned polio vaccine.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I hope I'm remembering. I think it's polio vaccine, and then cases of polio started going up in Ikonne. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just just a simple math, mm-hmm, you know. But I don't know how to. But I do my best. Even when I belong to group, you know, we belong to groups where people communicate. You do our best, you know. Sometimes it helps to listen, especially when you're far away, mm-hmm, and try to let them lead the way. People at home to lead the way, so that it does not look like you are imposing your knowledge, what you've been told on them. Mm-hmm. But you know, it's all about everything in life is about timing. So sometimes you don't have to like argue all the time, but sometimes you just have to wait for the right moment to provide information that you think is important. Yes.
The point here is, Pastor Morgan, I'm coming to you, but the point is, if somebody is in one of those groups is completely bent on spreading conspiracy theories that are completely debunked, but you know, it is out there. It's already out there. If somebody is lying, whether you tell them that they are not speaking the truth, but some people have heard it, right? The problem is, how do we make sure that the right information is getting out and believed? Because we need to make sure, because we need to get 70% of the people vaccinated to be able to make sure that this pandemic ends. If we let the falsehood continue, including the traditional beliefs too, then we got a problem. Pastor Ikonne, what do you think?
I think this is a very important question and something to really, and I agree with Dr. Joshua about the challenge of superstition. Mm-hmm. But also we should understand that Africa as a continent has evolved People are quite knowledgeable today. Technology is still making a heavy inroad into Africa. So people have many ways of sourcing their news and information beyond their locality and all that. But the challenge stems from our community think, which is an ideology that what we generally believe as a community is what everybody should believe about this issue. But the advantage to that is that the community think can elevate community leaders to the position of trust, where if they step up and speak to the same issue in a truthful way, their communities are more likely to listen to it. I give you an example. Because of my work and my interaction with the faith community, Nigeria, for instance, is a country of two major religions, Christianity and Islam. Each of these religions have a strong inclination to trusting and believing what their religious leaders says.
Yeah.
Therefore, to properly get our people back home to buy into this vaccine, we need to find ways to engage with those leaders within their communities whom they still have a trust for, not necessarily their government, because I will tell you 8 out of 10 people in my own country, his own country, Dr. Joshua, don't believe in the government of the day because of corruption. So, but those of them who go to faith houses of worship, they believe their pastors, they believe their imams. They will do whatever their imams and their pastors are asking them. So I think that World Health Organization and every other agency responsible for ensuring that this virus is stamped out needs to engage with faith community leaders, as well as engage with governmental agencies. But above all things is to also understand that failure to engage with these community leaders and governmental leaders who are trustworthy in the African continent will ensure the continuity of the spread of this virus. This world is so interconnected that if you deal with the virus here, and from the data present, even those who have contracted COVID and got through it, they are being still suggested to take the vaccine because they don't know this is a new virus. Nobody really have understood all the intricate complexity of it. So I think that is one thing that we need to do. The other thing we need to do, and very quickly, is that those of us here in diaspora needs to engage in community sensitization. Whatever groups we belong to home, we need to raise these questions and hear what they are challenged, because they are on ground. They know, they hear. Let's hear them first. I agree with Dr. Joshua. Let's hear them first. And when we hear them, we can process and find examples. He just cited an example that happened in northern Nigeria when the governor insisted that, this vaccine needs to be stopped. And instantly, the death toll started rising. So there are historical instances that we can leverage and say, okay, we hear you, but look back. When this happened and this happened, didn't you see this? Because our people are people of tangibility. They want to be sure that they can touch it, feel it before they believe it. So if there are correlative experiences to which they can believe in the past, it will help to elevate their trust in this. But we got to stay engaged.
The evangelical church movement in the United States has a disappropriate influence to the churches in Africa. Because for historical reasons, when the United States was fighting communism, that was the channel we went through to Africa to make sure that the Africans understood that we are good people. And so they believed the evangelical leaders. The problem is, right now, the evangelical movement in the United States is skeptical of the vaccine. And that skepticism and that hesitancy is reflecting itself heavily on the evangelical churches in Africa, particularly in Kenya. How do we solve that? Because we know for sure that it's good for the leaders, church leaders, to spread or to get this message across. But if the church leaders, like you said, you had somebody telling their parishioners not to take the vaccine, if that church leader has 2 or 20 churches in Kenya, those people, when you try to talk to them, they are saying, we got a pastor in Alabama who told us that this thing is not good. It looks like he's credible because he's a pastor in Alabama who told those people that the vaccine is not good. So how do we tackle that?
I think that's a major challenge, and that's my concern. If there been anything that has given me a lot of concern, is the politicization of the church in America. It is worrisome to me. It is very, very worrisome because the text of our tenets, the Bible, some of the things that many of my evangelical fellows are doing and saying are completely contrary to the scriptures that we hold as our standard of morality and ethics and life and practice. So I believe that there is need for this administration that is coming in not to be dismissive or dismissive rather of the challenge and the potential influence of the evangelical church in America. They gotta find a way to engage with them. I know that the look of the evangelical church in America is that the Democratic Party is a satanic party. They do this, they do that. But they need to find a way to engage with evangelical leaders. If this problem are going to be solved, they need to bring them to the table. Why? Because if you are dismissive of somebody's ideology and you think you can circumvent the person by passing through other channels, the person already has a stronghold. We see that with the political fallout that is going on with the election. You know, there are no evidences, there are no nothing, but there is a majority who still hold on to that. So I will encourage this administration to find a way to engage with the evangelical leaders of America. That's number one. Number two, whoever is going to be their liaison person for African continent has to be somebody who is inclined evangelically in doctrine and in practice, who can be able to convey a message in language and context that is understandable by the African parishioners who are back home. If you send somebody who cannot do that, that's a wasted effort. So those are two things that they need to pursue concurrently. And finally is that those of us who are evangelicals from African continent or of the African descent, we need to devoid ourselves of being so partisan, politically involved. Our people will die. Our people are dying. For goodness sake, the gospel is about redeeming life, saving people, making the best for people's life. If that is the very heart of the gospel, the question is, if Christ was here today, will he be this politically involved as we are? And if the answer is no, then don't do that. So we need to understand what is at stake here. You may be in your ivory tower in America, but you have a nephew, a cousin, a relative who will die of COVID-19 if you don't speak truth and speak it in the context and the language that they can understand.
Dr. Joshua, this is complicated, as I said. Any innovation has that curve, okay? As I said, there are early adopters. We know that if it came in, there would be people who would go in straight be in line, and then there would be those who would wait and see what happens, the late adopters, okay? That's for technology, that's okay, that's what I accept. But How do we shorten that curve? Let's try to imagine that the political baggage would be done with and the hesitancy will be done with. How do we make sure that the adoption curve is flattened so that we have that 70% vaccination in Africa and among the minorities in the US?
Information is the key. As we should not do any of this thing in the cover of darkness. Everything should be publicized. As you just like I think they're doing a very good job right now, showing when the scientists or doctors take their vaccine, they put them on the news. We just need to. It's all about inundating people with actual, real information. Information will be the key, you know. And the work that you guys are doing here, this is actually also a good channel that people can actually hear other people talking about this thing as being real. People might relate to that more. So you guys are doing a good job with this forum.
We are happy you came to join us. We are praying that you stay with us because we intend to continually do this. Because if 2, 3, 4, 20 people hear this and take the vaccine and are saved from the COVID-19 and also get mental health help, we will have achieved our objective. Time has gone so fast, so I would like to give you, start with you, Joshua. What do you have to say? What kind of message would you like people to hear from you? 1 minute, and I'll go to Morgan, then we close it up so that most of the time, if our videos are too long, we normally lose audience so that they are the board. So we'll stop after 1 minute, then we'll stop there.
So only thing I'm going to have to say is COVID-19 is real. This is a new virus, and thank God for the wide community effort in terms of research. We're able to come up with a vaccine. Please, when it comes your time to take it, please take it. Maintain social distance. Heed to the instruction from the health authorities, please, and stay safe.
Hey, Pastor Morgan, what do you have to say?
I just want to say to everyone who is listening and those who will listen, COVID-19 is real. Solution can be both in spiritual intervention or in practical medical intervention. And there is nothing wrong if right now the solution is a medical intervention